Welcome to another episode of the Business Spotlight. I am joined today by Samuel Baird. He is with M&A Advisors. Samuel, thank you, number one, for taking the time to be on this episode of the Business Spotlight. And I'm excited to learn more about you and your business journey. So without further ado, Samuel, can you tell us a little bit about what you do and your business?
Yeah, so I'm a managing director at Sunbelt Business Advisors of Las Vegas. Traditionally, it started in the Sunbelt area, hence the name Sunbelt, and it basically would help, mom and pop owners sell.
Mhm.
Over the last 20, 30 years, that has expanded, and our office has been here in Vegas for the last 20 years, and I just took over last year of the office. And we do still help, the mom and pop shops sell, but we also help, companies from revenues of 5 to 150 million sell as well. So, we just try to help all the business owners that, who have, put up their own shingle and put all the hard work in, and we try to help to capitalize their investment, when they're looking to retire or transition or move on.
Yeah. So in your journey, what are some of the learning curves that you've learned that you can share with the audience?
Yeah, I mean, so the neat thing about where I sit is I get to meet with a lot of different businesses, and I see a
Mhm.
lot of different businesses, far from their financials, their operations, and you know, unfortunately, it's not every business can sell. That's
Right.
one thing that you have to kind of learn is, what's a sellable business and what's not. And so, like,
Mm.
one of the key indicators we'll look to, right off the bat, is the business at least netting over 100,000, because if it nets over 100,000, that can open up our buyer pool. But if it's under 100,000, what's the difference than going to find some job where it's going to pay you 70, 80,000 a year? Like,
Right.
why would you make that investment? And so I think trying to teach business owners that at times can get a little tricky, because, at the end of the day, it's their baby. They built this, they think there's tremendous value in it, and that may be the case, but, there simply just may not be a buyer for it. And, that's always one of the trickiest things you have to navigate in this
Yeah.
business.
Yeah, yeah. And then knowing that, that business, can it function without that owner, right?
Yes. Yeah. And that's the other thing is, if you have an owner that, take like a mechanic shop where the owner is the mechanic, well,
Hmm.
good luck. It's going to be very hard to sell, because as soon as we take you out, what do you have?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's what we find too in coaching a lot of the clients that we work with, right? And a lot of the business owners is we scale them to the point where that commercial profitable enterprise that runs without them, and teaching them that, you know, if this is part of the exit strategy, then we need to build it to that, right? And
Right.
then putting them in hands like you to be able to do that handoff.
Yeah.
Um,
No, no, exactly. And, to that point, I always say, if you want to start thinking about starting your business, you want to start looking 5 years ahead.
mhm.
Start taking the necessary steps, as far as, because, we all get it. We don't like to pay our taxes. We like to do as many rides as we can, and that's totally fine. But, sometimes we got to eat those a little bit more to show the business a little bit more profitability. And so if you start being able to pull back, put the necessary management in place, kind of,
Mm.
make sure you're showing as much profit as you can, we have such a better chance of selling the business, even securing finance, so someone could come in and, with a 10% down payment, be able to buy the business as well, and you're still getting all the cash at the end of the day. So,
Mhm.
um, it for us, it's really, we love getting on with the company, when they're pre 5 years,
Right.
and so that way we can just help them out through that process and get them ready to sell.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's good, right? It's knowing that what does that 5 and 10 year plan look like?
Yeah,
And if selling the business is in there, then it's, making sure it's a well-oiled machine so that way it does become lucrative for someone who is looking to invest in it, right?
yeah, 100%.
Samuel, how do what advice, would you give 20-year-old Samuel that was just getting into business?
Um, that's a great question. Um, I mean, so I was fortunate, really, because I always knew I wanted to end up doing this. So, um, I just call it luck, call it, circumstances, whatever you want to call it. But I was just put in different positions where I was able to capitalize off of people's knowledge and what they were doing, and kind of that combination of events kind of led me here where I am today. So I don't know if I would have changed anything when I was in my 20s, just because it just, I just happened to be at the right place at the right time. I would hear something and, kind of started my path down this road. Um, but for, I guess, anyone in there in general, I would just say, I think there's a lot of knowledge you can learn from anybody and anyone and in any situation. And so no matter if you're 15 or if, you're 45, I think just looking for those opportunities to learn are like invaluable, because
Right.
there's just been times where something happened, when I was 25 that, someone told me about that now, I'm able to recall it, and it affects how, how I make it like a business to be able to sell and stuff. So, um, that would be kind of my advice, is just always looking for those moments to learn from other people. And, you never know what's going to stick and how that will become useful down the line.
Yeah, and that's really good advice, right? Is knowing that surrounding yourself with that circle of mentors, right? And
Yeah.
learning from other people um can help you in that business journey. So that, that's really, really good advice. What are some of the biggest challenges, with your industry that you guys face, and how are you tackling that?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest ones we're seeing right now is there's a lot of doom and gloom on the news. I always joke I can't tell if we're in a recession or not. I talk to any of my construction related businesses, they're like, I don't even know what you're talking about. We're so busy and we're still growing and we're still seeing great numbers, and the market's not even indicating that here. So I think a lot of it is, trying to overcome those fear, right? Because a lot of people think, well, if we're in a recession, it's going to be really hard to sell my business. And, quite frankly, it's still a very good time to sell your business if you're looking to get out. It's still a very good time. The buyer pools is still strong. I would say, sure, some of the financing situations, bank situations, affect, an individual's ability possibly to secure like a SBA loan for a business acquisition. But we're still seeing a lot of strategics actively in the space. And so, I think that's kind of the biggest challenge right now, is trying to communicate that, you know, yeah, there's a little bit going on, but we can still ride that wave out and still ultimately make a transaction happen at the end of the day, and still, fulfill your goal despite, whatever is going on in the world.
Yeah, 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 and that's true, right? Like some industries are thriving right now. There
Hmm.
are others that are looking for different strategies, but that's where, like again, going back to that circle and leaning to like, hey, what's working out in the marketplace? How do we pivot? And knowing how to stay ahead of the game
Yeah.
is key.
Yeah,
Um,
and part of our process too is, we're doing health checks so it usually takes about a year to sell a business.
mhm.
So one, if a business owner is coming to me, I just kind of say, it's like a marriage. We're going to be best friends. I'm going to know the name of your dog by the end of this, and we're going to be together for a year. But also during that year, we're doing health checks through the businesses. And so, there are times we have to have that hard conversation saying, look, your Q2 numbers aren't what they should be. We're going to
Mm.
have to drop the valuation a little bit, or we can take it off the market, let you kind of revamp some things, and then, we put it back on. So there's a lot of, different strategies that we'll engage with too, to kind of help, with what's going on in the economy, because we get it. Right now, the last couple of years, it's been nothing but normal, and it's been a bit of a roller coaster for everyone.
Oh yeah.
And so, that's where we've been really trying to help, is just find those right strategies. When do we need to pull back, or when do we need to go all in?
Right, right. And that's good advice right there. And then I think that's one of the key things that I'm taking away, is that you have to have that hard conversation with them, right? Like
Hmm.
it's not an easy conversation to have, but the sooner you have it, the easier it is to start working on the right strategies to get it back in the green.
Yeah, and I always find too, no matter how difficult it is, and how offended or hurt the business owners may be, because they feel like it's a personal insult to their business, which I get. I certainly wouldn't want to be told that, but I think having those upfront conversations and early on,
Hmm.
before it gets too late, and be able to correct the course, I think ultimately builds trust too.
Oh
So
yeah.
no matter what environment you're in, I think it's good to have those conversations so you can build the trust and be able to, shift quickly, where you need to shift, and understand these are my deficiencies. This is how to make it stronger, and this is how we get there.
Yeah, 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 and that's good because I know we have those, and I tell a lot of our clients, right? Like, look, it's going to be a blow to the ego, but the faster we get through this, and the faster we have this conversation, this is how we know what strategies or what levers to pull to get things going back in the direction towards the vision of what you have.
Yeah.
Which actually leads to my next question, Samuel. What's your vision for the future with your guys' business?
So I'd say that I think the future is bright here. I think the last couple of years, one of the good benefits with COVID is we got a lot more diverse, like in an economic sense.
Hmm.
I know the venture capital funds have over doubled over the last couple of years. We're seeing a lot more private equity groups coming in and investing. We're seeing a lot more, big corporations wanting to get into the space. So I think it's a great time too, especially with all the quote unquote baby boomers,
Mm,
and that silver tsunami that's coming in wanting to retire. And a lot of those companies too, like I've talked to several in the last couple of weeks, and they just don't have anyone they can give the business to.
mm,
So then what? Especially if it's a multi-generational family business that's been privately held, they're kind of left wondering, what do I do with this? And obviously, they have a great company, great platform, great products or services, and so that's really, we really try to come in and help that. So, I think the future is very bright here in Vegas, and I think it continue will be. I think it's a great place to do business, and there's a lot of good things going on right now.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You mentioned Vegas has a lot of good things, and that's true, right? Like we have a lot of the professional sports coming. The
Mhm.
economy's doing really good. There's a lot of thriving businesses, and it's just knowing, how to position certain things for certain business owners, right? You talked about the multi-generational ones, and they don't have that plan B. Like, hey, who is going to take it over next? So, you know, putting it in the hands of your guys' business is good for what you're doing for them because it is a big baby for them, right? Like
Yeah.
it started in the family and how's it going to end? And having those conversations early is what's helpful is what is plan B?
Mhm. Yeah, no, absolutely. And the way we work too is, we always I tell any seller, like, look, you can get the craziest offer in the world and it could be, 10 million all cash. They're ready to go. But if you just don't like the buyer, great. You tell us no, we move on. We'll go find someone else, especially because if they are leaving other family members, because we've had this situation where, there may be a son or a niece or a nephew that's still in the company that's still running it, but they just don't feel like they're quite ready for that leadership and want someone else to kind of come in and help them push them to that next level. Um, that's what we do is we'll basically find that right person, that right fit that, can still continue on with the legacy of the business.
Mhm.
And they're in the driver's seat and we're basically the guide through this process. And so that's, really how we look at it.
Yeah, yeah. As we're getting out of COVID, Samuel, what have you personally learned, about yourself throughout this entrepreneurship journey?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is being able to pivot and pivot quick, but also abandoning what doesn't work quick too. So I think with all the change that happens, you have to be quick and on your toes. But if something's working, you just got to be able to drop it and move on and, not think twice about it. So I think it's that constant evaluation process of like, let's try something new. Does it
Hmm.
work? Yes or no? Give it some time, get some metrics behind it to be able to actually measure it. If it's not working, great, cut it, find something else, move, and I think that's, really the one thing I've had to learn is just being able to make those quick decisions sometimes and just trusting your gut instinct
Hmm.
and, just not staying stagnant. I think that's the worst thing you could do. Especially with what everything's going on and has gone on the last couple of years is just staying stagnant. Because if you stay stagnant, eventually you're just not going to move and you're ultimately going to fail.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That right there is probably the highlight of the conversation is knowing, in business coaching, we call it testing and measuring, right? What is
Mhm.
working, what's not working? How do we make sure we, pivot focus and focus on the things that are working, right? Um, a lot of the quick for us is knowing that we can guide a client if they are tracking the analytics, right?
Yeah.
And number one, are they tracking the analytics? We found, in us working with a lot of business owners, they don't even understanding the KPIs. What is the balance sheet? What's the cash flow look like? All those numbers and metrics, how critical in the heartbeat of the
Yeah.
business it can be.
Yeah.
Um, as we wrap up today's business spotlight, Samuel, what are some of the services that or specials that you guys are offering right now? What's the best way for people to get a hold of you?
Best way is you can check out our website, sunbeltlasvegas.com. You can see some of the listings that we do have.
Hmm.
We also offer a free value range for any company. It's complimentary, no strings attached. So if you're ever curious just to see what my business is worth under the current conditions, we do that free. And then, if you want to learn more about the process too, it's all on our website. So, and then obviously you can reach out to me or anyone, any one of the guys that work here in the office, and we're more than happy to help.
Well, Sam, I do want to say thanks for being on this episode of the Business Spotlight. I have one final question. And this one I like to keep open is, what's one question you wish I did ask that I did not ask?
One question you asked, I did not ask. So, well, I mean, curiously, because obviously we see stuff from the business sales side of it. I know you're on the business coaching side of it. I mean, are you kind of seeing similar things that we're seeing, as I've kind of described?
Yeah. So a lot of it has to do with just, guiding the business owner. And it's through the things that, we don't know what we don't know.
Right.
And it's a lot of business education. So for us guiding them in that direction, it's, let's take a look at what the goal is, right, of the business. What type of lifestyle do you want this business to provide for you? And are you getting everything that you ever dreamed of out of the business, right? And if you're not, how do we make sure we're on course? So
Right.
for us, it's just having that honest conversation with the business owner, and guiding them in that direction. And then, grooming that team to make sure that they are working, the business the way it should be, and then getting, time, team, and money back. Those are the
Right.
three common things that we find when working with business owners. Number one, they feel that they don't have enough time, whether it's, to spend time with loved ones or not enough time in the day to get things done. They're looking, how do I find the right people to sit at the right seat? And it all leads to, them wanting more money at the end of the day.
Right. Right. No, no, exactly.
Well, again, I appreciate you for being on this episode of the Business Spotlight, Samuel, and we look forward to connecting out there.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks for having me.